Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max.
Right.
And specifically, we're focusing on the stuff you can, really feel, materials, the colors, that sort of thing, how well it's all put
Yeah,
together.
build quality.
Exactly, the build quality. We've got all the usual suspects, the specs from Apple, the press releases. But we're also going to be looking at this really interesting Reddit thread where people are already, getting their hands on these phones and talking about them.
Oh, wow. So like early impressions.
Exactly, early impressions.
Cool.
So, first up, the big news is titanium. Apple went with titanium for the Pro models this time around.
Yeah.
And not just any titanium, we're talking grade 5. Apparently, the strength-to-weight ratio is, crazy good.
It is. It's incredibly strong, but also very lightweight.
Yeah, so for someone who's actually using this phone every day, what does that translate to?
Well, I mean, you're going to get a phone that's really resistant to scratches and dents, but it's not going to feel heavy or bulky in your pocket. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Okay, that makes sense. But why is Apple doing this now? Have they ever used titanium before?
This is actually a first for iPhones, and I think the timing is interesting. You know, there's this big push for sustainability these days, and titanium is a really durable material, so it lasts longer.
So less e-waste, potentially.
Exactly, less e-waste. Plus, it just feels really premium, which, fits with Apple's whole brand image.
It's definitely giving off those luxury vibes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And speaking of vibes, Apple's website mentions a microblasted finish. What is that exactly?
So microblasting basically involves spraying these tiny particles at the surface of the titanium, creating a very specific texture. It's kind of like sandblasting, but on a much smaller scale.
So what does that actually do?
Well, it gives the phone a matte finish, so it's less slippery and it doesn't pick up fingerprints as easily.
Ah, so that's why people on Reddit are saying it feels like holding a tank.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got to take those online comments with a grain of salt.
Of course. But it does seem like Apple's really focused on making this phone feel good in your hand, not just look good.
Definitely. It's the whole package.
All right, let's talk colors. Apple's got 4 new shades for the Pro models this year. Black titanium, white titanium, natural titanium, and desert titanium. First of all, what's with all the titanium in the names?
I think it's pretty clear they really want to emphasize the material, hey, look, we're using titanium now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely front and center in all their marketing.
Right, exactly.
But desert titanium, what is that, like a tan color?
It's kind of like a light bronze-ish shade.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does have a slightly rugged feel to it.
Are we thinking this is going to be the next rose gold? Remember how popular that was?
I mean, rose gold really tapped into a certain aesthetic. It became iconic almost. Yeah. I don't know if any of these new colors will reach that level. But it is interesting that they've gone for a more muted palette this time. Maybe it's a shift towards something a little more timeless,
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely less flashy than some of their previous colors. So we've talked about the titanium, the colors. But what about the actual build quality? That Reddit thread I mentioned earlier, people are raving about it.
Oh, yeah.
They're saying the precision is, insane, even compared to older iPhones.
Well, Apple has always had high standards, right? But it seems like they've really stepped it up with this one.
Yeah, it's like they've fine-tuned every little detail.
Exactly. And there was one comment that really caught my eye in that thread. It was about the new way they're removing the battery now.
Oh, yeah. That thing with the glue and the electric current.
Yeah, that. It's pretty wild, right?
It's like something out of a science fiction movie. So explain this to me. How does that even work?
So apparently they're using this special adhesive that loosens up when you apply a specific electric current to it.
Wait, so you just zap the glue and the battery pops out?
Pretty much. It makes it much easier to remove the battery safely without damaging the phone.
Okay, so this is good news for anyone who's ever tried to replace their own iPhone battery and ended up with a cracked screen.
Right. Or, punctured the battery itself, which can be dangerous.
Yeah, not good. But seriously, how does applying a current even loosen glue?
It's actually pretty clever. They're using an adhesive that's sensitive to changes in its electrical properties. So when you apply the current, it basically alters the structure of the glue, making it lose its stickiness.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like science fiction, but in real life.
I know, right? It's really impressive. And it makes you wonder if Apple is intentionally trying to make their phones easier to repair.
That's a great question. I mean, for a long time, it felt like they were doing the opposite, making it as hard as possible to open up their devices.
Right, like they wanted to discourage people from repairing them themselves.
But this new battery thing, it almost feels like a complete 180.
It does, doesn't it? And it's not just the battery. Apparently the back glass is easier to remove now, too. So it seems like they're making a conscious effort to design for repairability.
So what's the motivation here? Is it just about being eco-conscious, or is there more to it?
I think it's a bit of both. There's definitely growing awareness of e-waste and the environmental impact of all these gadgets we use.
Yeah, people are starting to think about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Plus, it's good PR for Apple, you know? It makes them look good, like they're listening to consumer concerns.
And of course, easier repairs could lead to happier customers, which means more loyal customers.
Right, it's a win-win situation.
So it's good for the planet, good for business, good for us, the users.
Exactly.
But how realistic is it to expect this trend to catch on industry-wide? Will other phone makers follow suit?
Well, that's the big question. Apple often sets the tone for the industry, so this could be a sign of things to come. But it really depends on a lot of factors: consumer demand, new technologies, all of that.
Imagine a world where all our gadgets are designed to be fixed, not tossed aside. It'd be a huge shift in how we think about technology.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Okay, but let's get back to the iPhone 16 Pro specifically. We've talked titanium, colors, build quality, and this new focus on repairability. Is there anything else about this phone's construction that stands out?
Well, we haven't touched on the ceramic shield yet. That's the material they use for the display. And Apple claims it's twice as tough as any other smartphone glass out there.
Twice as tough.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's what they say.
Is there, any evidence to back that up?
Well, there was that story on Reddit about the YouTuber who dropped their iPhone 16 Pro down a flight of concrete stairs.
Oh, yeah, and the phone was totally fine.
No scratches, no cracks, nothing. It was crazy.
But that's just one anecdote, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's indestructible.
Right, of course. But it does suggest that this ceramic shield is pretty darn durable.
All right, so what exactly is this ceramic shield? Is it just, super strong glass?
It's actually a bit more complex than that. It's a glass ceramic composite. So it combines the scratch resistance of glass with the toughness of ceramic.
So it's a hybrid material.
Exactly.
Okay, and how does that make it so tough?
Well, they use this high temperature process to fuse tiny ceramic crystals within the glass. And that creates a really strong bond that can withstand impacts.
So it's not just scratch resistant, it can actually take a hit.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Wow. It's amazing how much tech goes into something as seemingly simple as a phone screen.
I know, right? It's mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Titanium, colors, build quality, repairability, ceramic shield. Anything else about the iPhone 16 Pro's materials and design that we're missing?
I think we've hit all the major points. But there's one final thought I'd like to leave you with. All of these advancements, they point to a bigger question about our relationship with technology.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, we live in a world where we're constantly upgrading our devices, right?
Yeah.
New phone every year, new laptop every few years.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle.
Right, but what if this shift towards durability and repairability is a sign that that's starting to change?
You mean like a shift away from that disposable tech mindset?
Exactly.
That's an interesting thought. What if we're moving towards an era where our devices are designed to last longer, to be repaired and upgraded, rather than just thrown away?
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be amazing, both for the environment and for our wallets.
Exactly. And think about the innovation that could happen if companies weren't so focused on just churning out new models all the time.
They could actually spend time developing truly groundbreaking technologies instead of just slightly better cameras every year.
Right. It's like we're moving from a culture of more to a culture of better.
I like that. Not just the newest thing, but the best thing, the thing that actually lasts.
And I think consumers are starting to demand that. We're more aware of the environmental impact of our choices, and we also want things that are well-made and built to last.
It's like we're finally realizing that the true cost of a device isn't just the price tag. It's the environmental cost, the societal cost, all of it.
You got it. And that's why I think this whole conversation about the iPhone 16 Pro is so fascinating. It's not just about a new phone, it's about a potential shift in our values and priorities.
That's a really profound thought. I think we need to take a break and let this sink in for a bit. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and I'm still thinking about that idea of a shift in our values, moving away from that disposable tech mindset.
Yeah, it's a big question. And the iPhone 16 Pro, With its focus on durability and repairability, it might be like an early sign of that happening.
I really hope so. It would be amazing to live in a world where our devices are made to last, where we can repair them and upgrade them instead of just tossing them out every couple of years.
Absolutely. And imagine the impact on innovation, right? If companies weren't so focused on pumping out new models every year.
They could actually put those resources into developing something truly groundbreaking.
Exactly. Instead of just like slightly better cameras or whatever.
Yeah, the incremental upgrades.
It's like, what if we moved from a culture of more to a culture of better?
I love that. Not just the newest thing, but the best thing.
Yeah.
The thing that lasts.
And I think people are starting to realize, we're more aware of the environmental impact of all this stuff, and we also appreciate things that are well-made, that are built to last.
It's like we're finally understanding that the true cost of a device isn't just the price tag.
Right. It's the environmental cost, the societal cost, all of that.
Exactly. Okay, but let's get back to the iPhone 16 Pro for a second. We've talked titanium, colors, build quality, repairability. Anything else about this phone's construction that's worth mentioning?
Well, we haven't talked about the ceramic shield. That's the material they use for the display.
Right.
And Apple says it's twice as tough as any other smartphone glass out there.
Twice as tough. Come on, is that even possible?
Well, remember that story from Reddit, the YouTuber who dropped their iPhone 16 Pro down a flight of concrete stairs?
Oh, yeah, and it survived without a scratch.
Exactly. No cracks, nothing. Pretty wild.
But, I mean, that's just one story, right?
Yeah.
It's not exactly scientific proof.
Of course. But it does suggest that this ceramic shield is, pretty darn durable.
So what is it exactly? Is it just like super strong glass?
It's actually a glass ceramic composite. So it combines the scratch resistance of glass with the toughness of ceramic.
Okay, so it's like a hybrid material.
Exactly.
And how does that make it so tough?
So they use this high temperature process to basically fuse tiny ceramic crystals within the glass. And that creates this incredibly strong bond that can withstand impacts.
So it's not just scratch resistant. It can actually take a hit.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It's amazing how much technology goes into something as simple as a phone screen,
I know, right? It's mind-blowing.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Titanium, colors, build quality, repairability, this ceramic shield. Is there anything else about the iPhone 16 Pro's materials and design that we haven't touched on?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. But, all these advancements, they make me think about something bigger, like our relationship with technology as a whole.
Okay, I'm listening.
We live in a world where we're constantly upgrading our devices, right?
Yeah.
New phone every year, new laptop every few years.
It's a never-ending cycle.
Exactly. But what if this shift towards durability and repairability, what if it's a sign that things are starting to change?
You mean like people are starting to reject that whole disposable tech mindset?
Exactly. What if we're moving towards a world where our devices are designed to last longer? Where we can repair them and upgrade them instead of just throwing them away.
That would be incredible, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing, both for the environment and for our wallets. And think about the innovation that could happen if companies weren't so focused on just pumping out new models all the time.
Yeah, they could actually focus on developing truly groundbreaking technologies instead of, slightly better cameras every year.
Exactly. Like we could move from a culture of more to a culture of better.
I love that idea. Not just the newest thing, but the best thing, the thing that actually lasts.
And I think consumers are starting to demand that. We're becoming more aware of the environmental impact of our choices. And we also just want things that are well-made, things that are built to last.
It's like we're finally realizing that the true cost of a device isn't just the price tag. It's the environmental cost, the societal cost, all of it.
You got it. And that's why I think this whole conversation about the iPhone 16 Pro is so interesting. It's not just about a new phone. It's about a potential shift in our values, in our priorities.
That's a really powerful thought. So what can we as consumers do to encourage this shift, towards more sustainable tech?
Well, first of all, we can vote with our wallets, support companies that are prioritizing durability, repairability, things like that. Do your research before you buy a new device. Consider buying refurbished or pre-owned.
That's a good point. And we can also advocate for policies that support right to repair. Push for legislation that encourages companies to make their devices easier to fix.
Absolutely. The more we demand change, the more likely we are to see it.
Well said. This deep dive has been really eye-opening. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of the iPhone 16 Pro's materials and build quality to these bigger questions about our relationship with technology and the future of sustainable design.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to continue exploring these ideas, to read more, to research different devices, and to really think about what matters most to them when they're making their next tech purchase.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. The more informed we are as consumers, the better choices we can make.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, stay curious and stay informed. All right, we're back. And that idea we were talking about before the break, that shift in values away from disposable tech. I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? And this iPhone 16 Pro, it could be like a little glimpse into that future, maybe.
Yeah, with all this emphasis on durability and repairability.
Exactly.
I mean, just imagine if everything was built to last like that,
It would be a different world, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would. Our devices would be more like tools, things you invest in and take care of.
Instead of just like disposable fashion accessories.
Yeah, exactly. And think about all the waste we'd eliminate.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be huge for the environment.
And for our wallets, too, probably.
Yeah. No more upgrading every year just because there's a new model.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what else? I bet we'd see some really cool innovation if companies weren't so focused on just pumping out new models all the time.
Oh, totally. They could really dig deep and come up with some groundbreaking stuff.
Instead of just slightly better cameras or whatever.
Yeah, the incremental upgrades. It gets kind of boring after a while.
Totally. What if we shifted from a culture of more to a culture of better? You know what I mean?
I love that. Not just the newest thing, but the best thing.
Yeah, the thing that actually lasts, that you can rely on.
And honestly, I think people are starting to want that,
Yeah, I think so too.
We're all a bit more aware of the impact of our choices these days.
Yeah, the environmental impact, the ethical impact, all of that.
Exactly. And we appreciate quality, Things that are well-made, that are built to last.
I think we've all had enough of that cheap, flimsy stuff that breaks after a year.
Right. It's just frustrating.
Totally. So what can we do? What can we do as consumers to kind of push this forward, to encourage this shift towards more sustainable tech?
Well, I mean, the first thing is vote with your wallets, right?
Yes. Yeah. Support the companies that are doing things right.
Exactly. The companies that are prioritizing durability, repairability, using sustainable materials, all of that.
Do your research before you buy something. Really think about what you're supporting.
And don't be afraid to consider refurbished or pre-owned options too. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what about on a policy level? Can we do anything there?
Oh, absolutely. We need to push for stronger right to repair laws, make it easier for people to fix their own stuff.
Yeah, make it harder for companies to lock us out of our own devices.
Exactly. The more we demand change, the more likely it is to happen.
Well said. This deep dive has been, honestly, it's been really eye-opening. We started with the iPhone 16 Pro, the titanium and the colors and all that.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. But we ended up in this really deep conversation about our values and the future of technology.
That's how it always goes, doesn't it? One thing leads to another.
It really does. So to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep thinking about these things.
Yeah, don't let the conversation end here.
Read more, do your research, and really consider what matters most to you when you're making those tech purchases.
Because at the end of the day, it's our choices that shape the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.